Now, Mr. Belay, we're good to start if you're okay.
All right. Sounds good, Steve. Thank you.
Okay. Now, I really don't have anything to add. This is the same reminders I've had for a couple months now, and there's nothing that's changed with any of them. You can take a look at them on my notes. So that's all I have. And you can move on from me, Mr. Belay.
All right. Don is
Yep.
going to discuss a complaint that we received regarding this property at 616 Edgewood Road. I rode out there today. It's a standalone structure. And it looks like it just doesn't have anybody in it. And it's up to what you guys want to do to make a decision what to do with it. Okay, Don, thank you.
That's exactly what I need, is a decision by you folks to tell me what you think. I went up yesterday and I measured the tree. And the tree is a setback from the other trees that are in the borough right of way. And it's probably maybe 3 inches from being in the right of way. But I think that when it was planted, that the tree was a setback and it was planted out of the right of way. But I checked this tree and it's actually there's branches actually laying down on the roof. First time I've ever seen that. And it's encroaching the neighbor's yard. So I tried to get a hold of the maintenance company and that's fruitless. I have nowhere to go with that. I've checked with Janet Sullivan to see who's paying the taxes. The taxes are being paid, but we feel that there's either a home equity or a second mortgage on the house. And I don't know which way to go with this thing here. So I think I need a decision from you folks, which way you want to go.
It is a very large tree and it does hang out over there. I noticed that. So I can see where it can definitely be a problem.
Yeah, definitely.
I have a question. We talking about the one on Edgewood?
Edgewood Road, 616.
Right.
Yeah.
I didn't see anything in that letter about a tree, but they talked about it being a blighted property. I mean, personally, I drove there to look at it. Aside from some weeds on the driveway, it didn't appear to me to be blighted. In fact, there are probably a number of properties that people actually live in that look a lot worse than that property there. So I'm not sure exactly what we would be stepping into.
Well,
I agree, Angelo, as I noticed it to be the same way.
they do mention,
Doesn't look too bad.
they do mention trees in the middle paragraph that's highlighted in yellow, just so you know, that they do mention that tree.
Okay, I'll take a look.
That tree is actually laying on the roof. It's not just hanging over it. It's laying down on the roof. It's a huge limb. It can be pruned, but I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Well, I mean, outside of any code violations, I'm not sure what else they would want us to do.
Is this a situation where the building is unoccupied and the owner is absent or not?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Is there someone paying the taxes? So there must be an escrow fund of some sort?
Exactly. That's what's taking place. Either a second mortgage or a home equity of some sort, but the taxes are being paid on time.
Could we have the tree pruned so that it is no longer a hazard to the building or the surrounding neighbors and leave the rest of the tree intact?
I can do that. Yes. Yes, that's
Would
what
we
I
be
need.
billing the homeowner for that?
Right,
rather
we'd be
than us
billing the
paying
property.
for it?
We billed the property owner against their account for that.
Right, right. I tried to get a hold of the maintenance people, this BLM company, and that's fruitless. You can't get through to those people for nothing. It's a voicemail, and I've tried several times yesterday to get through, and it's fruitless.
So your process then would be to notify them that the borough would plan to prune the tree because it's presenting a clear and present danger to the building and to neighboring properties, and that we would bill the property owner for that service.
Correct,
Then you would, within a certain number of days, proceed to do that, correct?
correct. Now
Okay.
that owner of that home is deceased.
Yeah. So it would be the estate of the owner that would have to be responsible for paying for the maintenance on the property in the form of pruning, but not taking down and destroying the tree.
I don't want to take the tree down either, but that's why I need your decision as to whether it should be pruned or just left alone.
I think we should
I
prune
think,
it.
I think pruning it would be a good idea to reserve it, because it is a nice little neighborhood there. And the house fits really well, so I think it'd be wise to save it and prune the tree.
I can do that.
Okay. Do you need a vote of council to do that, or can you proceed? In other words, does this need to be on the agenda on the 17th?
No,
Okay,
That's all I have.
Okay, all right, Don, thank you.
Mhm.
There's so many committee reports to report, except that the school bus signs are really showing up well. And I'm getting some really good reports from the neighborhood that they're really happy that there's some signage there to help their kids know, and the parents know where to go and pick up kids or let them off. So
I
want to
have
say that.
something. I would like to just note that the Soul Smart community has been doing a review of our zoning regulations for solar readiness. I would like to bring their recommendations to the committee next month. I will distribute their report in the meantime and ask everyone to please look at it so we can consider it in the June meeting of this committee.
Okay, sounds good. Any other announcements or feelings regarding this committee? Okay, Steve, we're done.
okay, Finance Committee is next, and I'm ready to go.
All right.
So
Mr.
manager's
Mr.
update, if that's
Morris,
okay
would you
with you.
proceed? Yes, please.
Okay, I have a number of things I want to share with you. First, the cash flow year to date, I have attached to the notes you have, and just to take a moment here, this is the graph that I usually use. The red line here is the current year that you see, and you'll see it's kind of jumbled up here in April with some of the other ones. If you look at the numbers at the bottom, it is one of the lower cash situations going into May, ending April into May. And I think you should, again, make sure you're careful with reviewing the financial statements the treasurer gives you. This is slightly below average. It also doesn't take into account the fact that we ended 2022 a little short. And should generally continue to create caution in spending. Just a couple of examples. When you look at the treasurer's report through April, which is called April 2023 financials rather, which Allison has already provided to you. What you want to do, one of the things you should do is try to compare year to date now with year to date a year ago. And you'll see a couple of things that are interesting. Overall revenues this year are up over last year by $363,000 plus. The real estate current year is up in revenues by $183,000. The transfer tax, on the other hand, is down. That was a substantial part of the budget, and it's down right now by about $13,000 compared with last year. With expenditures, to kind of dampen a little bit on the overall revenues being up, if you look at that, you'll see that overall expenditures between the 2 years is up this year by $195,000 plus. And some examples of that, the police budget through April was up by a little over 100,000, Public Works by a little over 24,000. On the other hand, tree services down by about 10,000, but there are still expenses that haven't been allocated to the books yet, and so that could change as we go. But those are some examples of things you should be taking a look at as you see these financial statements for the general fund especially, but for all the funds. Allison gives you that complete look, and it also has previous year to date. It shows you last year's month to date as well. And it would definitely make sense to take a little bit more time looking at that. Right now, overall, though, it doesn't look, it's not terrible. It's something, though, that you should be concerned about. That's the main thing I wanted to say about that. Does anybody have any questions about the cash flow?
I do, Mr. Morris.
Yes, Ms. Martin.
And I was looking through the revenues and the expenses, and I noticed under grants received, there was 97,935. It was listed under other grants. And I asked Allison about it, and she indicated that was for the Centennial and Pool grant.
Yeah.
Now, it looks like that came from a few years back. What are we using that for?
Well, that's money. I mean, the Centennial was very specific toward things related to Centennial. For example, the clock which hopefully should be up before the end of June. The clock will take a portion of that. That came from the grant.
Okay.
So lots of times, I think what she did in that case was she took money that was in a separate account and put it in to the general fund so we could spend from it. And so that means then that it had to show as a revenue in the general fund, but it doesn't mean necessarily it's new money. It probably was money that if you look in her treasurer's report through April, and by that, I mean that's the report that we attach to the council agenda every month. If you take a look at that, it probably means she took something from one of those accounts and just put it in the general fund so she could then distribute the money, pay the bills for whatever, as we go.
It'll be nice to see the clock up.
Yeah. They're supposed to be pretty close to being done. We have most of our stuff done. We do need to run conduit yet to the building from that concrete pad that we put in.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Morris.
welcome. You're welcome. Anybody else about the cash flow?
I had a question, Steve. We're supposed to be getting a $726,000 grant from the DCED for the
Right.
work on the trail. So we received notice of award yet?
Mr. Erbaldinger and I have signed the agreement, and I took a quick look on my phone tonight. I believe they sent us a final copy of the agreement. When they'll
Okay.
actually cut the money, I
No,
don't
but-
know.
But that means that we can authorize the design work to proceed for the,
Probably, I'd like to look at, that's usually very specific. It tells you in there. I'd like to look at that final agreement first and make sure it says, yes, and now we can go ahead and spend money. I'll tell you what I'll do is I will send you a copy of that too.
all right, I'll
so you
look
can
at it,
take a
yeah.
look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'd like to get that underway. I know every time I see Senator Costa, so I'm at the Chili Cook-Off, he asked about when we were doing a groundbreaking for that. He wanted to stage a press event, to have a ribbon cutting on the trail or something like that. We should plan to do that on the stairway down the avenues.
Sure.
So I
You
just
mean
wanted
you
to.
want to do it when we start digging, like a first
Well,
go kind of thing, or after it's done?
No, when it starts,
Okay.
to say this is underway and, it's a big deal and that sort of thing. And when we know the schedule of what's going to happen, but we should get McMahon involved pretty soon because they have to design the construction work. And we need to start that so we can get it done this year if we can.
Okay, anybody else on cash flow? Let me go on to my next item, then capital improvements. If you recall, years ago, we moved the planning for the New Year's capital improvements up into the spring. So we actually start looking at the capital improvements plan for 2024, starting this month. And tomorrow, when we have a staff meeting, I'll distribute the forms that I also sent you folks. I attached a separate email today, and it shows you forms like this as well as a memo from me. things like that. What we typically do again is it's a 5-year plan, as you can see from this, from 2024 through 2028. Each of these sheets is for a separate project. Council certainly is welcome to submit their own. The only thing I would suggest is make sure you talk to whoever, for example, if you're submitting something for public safety or for public safety, make sure you talk to the police and the fire department so that they're all on the same page. If you're submitting something for public works, make sure you talk to the foreman about that. Same thing with recreation, talk to Walt about that. So you have these forms, again, represent individual projects, and we're going to ask for them to be submitted to me by July. I'm asking that everybody include anything that we're not going to fund this year. If you wanted to continue, I'm asking you to include that again for next year. I can provide you with the old forms if you need to see them. So once council knows that they're not going to be submitting a particular project for this year, we can then, complete that for the new year and put that into the budget. What last thing I want to mention is I always mention again, this is a 5-year plan. Typically, council only funds the first year, and even that is limited. Now, other communities, and I've said this before, when they do a 5-year plan, would normally have some kind of funding plan available, for the future years, 25 through 28. We don't always do that here. It's not necessarily wrong, but it would be nice if we were able to do that. And I see Mr. Erbaldinger has his hand up.
Yeah.
So
I have a question. Did you put some thought into how we do the Siemens financing in the budget? Because we're saving lots of money on our energy bills, but some of it is still probably coming out of capital improvement. So I think we should put some thoughts to that. I think Siemens gave us some nice estimates. We can probably use that as a base. But we will save energy on the pool, we save energy on all those buildings, but somehow I don't know how we put it in a budget like that.
I could share this memo with John Zeller,
Yeah,
so that they're aware of it too, as how we do this, and they might then contribute to that way.
well,
In your
there-
5-year plan, some of the items which we actually have covered by Siemens now are in your 5-year plan. So we have to obviously take them out of that. But I think some money still needs to stay in the capital improvement for the Siemens payments. But we have
But there was an allocation of some of our capital plan projects into the match on the Siemens financing.
Yeah, I'm not
So
talking about that. I'm talking about the long-term thing.
Yeah,
You
But
pay them.
I'm hoping that we can include in the current year capital budget and next year those items that are our contribution to the financing, so that they transfer over from the capital budget into the next one. It was like,
Anybody else? Again, there's time to deal with this, and I'll keep putting reminders on the finance committee meeting so that you can, remember if you want to get involved. Again, we separate this out just because it's big ticket items. We wanted to make sure that the general fund and the other funds don't interfere. The planning for this doesn't interfere with those. Let me go on to the next item then. I have 2 items here that are going to be new to you, although you may have seen some of the stuff coming out in email, but please relax about it. You do not have to do anything tonight necessarily. The first one is the one that you may want to do immediately, but you don't have to. I did send to you the actuarial assumptions we got from Mock and Hop, and those are the assumptions that they put together to try to plan what our obligation is for the 2 main pension funds, the non-uniform and the police. And the assumptions usually have to deal with something like the consumer price index inflation rate. They have to do with things called smoothing, and smoothing is basically just trying to even things out, do some kind of an average or look for a mean to try to plan it. The reason being that when we're doing pension work, it usually does not cover the current year. The current year will probably be covered by 2025. That's what they'll use numbers from this year for calculating 2025. And that's just the way the state does that when they're compiling their minimum municipal obligation. So the actuary is asking you really for two things, and you can read this if you want, but I'm just going to summarize it briefly. They're asking if you would like them to change the assumption, which they're recommending, for the inflation rate from what they had in there originally, 2.5% to 2.75%. And that would be the first change that they would use in calculating the MMO, which you would get in September. The second change they're recommending is smoothing, changing the smoothing method that they use in the calculation. And you can read that in your letter if you haven't already. Again, if you are fine with this, and sometimes councils are fine with just going with what the actuary says, you can vote on it this month. If you are not, or if you want to take a deeper look at it for some reason, or if you have questions, or if you want to invite Mock and Hawk to attend a meeting in the future, you can do that and wait until June. The only issue with it really is that the earlier you give them direction, the more likely they are to definitely have things ready on time. If not, that can be an issue. So Marcus?
I add that stuff, and I mean, inflation, everyone knows inflation, we have a problem with that. So they are the expert, we pay them lots of money for giving us that judgment, so I think we should follow their recommendation.
Yeah, I reviewed this memo in some detail, and I think their recommendations on inflation are quite self-evident. On the smoothing, I was a little concerned about changing the basis of it, but I think it makes sense. They're not proposing a huge change, and I think it does reduce our liability in the out years. I think we're ready to approve this. I don't see any objections. Does anyone else have any concerns that would require us to have them in? Frank?
Yeah, I think that we should have Mock and Hawk come in and speak with us, because given the projected volatility of the market in 2023, smoothing might actually be a little bit of a roll of the dice, and I don't want to do that with our current pension. So Steve,
Well, smoothing wouldn't happen until 2025, just so you know. Whatever you
Okay.
decide tonight won't happen. That won't affect necessarily 2023.
No. They already do smoothing. They're just changing the basis of the smoothing slightly so that it would flatten it out more, taking it from 8% to 10%. And so it would flatten out the curve a little bit more. I wouldn't mind having them come in and explain that to us if you feel like.
I was going to say, I'd rather have them come in and
Okay.
walk us through the gotchas before we vote on, well, before you guys vote on it. I just, given the health of the pension plan where it is, I want to make sure that we're not opening ourselves up to risk. That makes sense.
Okay, well then I could have Sue Trott attend a meeting in June. I'm not sure
June.
whether she's available for the finance committee or not, but I would have her come out for one of the two meeting nights if that's okay with you, hopefully
Okay.
for finance. Not
Yeah,
come
I would-
out, I mean, attend Zoom.
Yeah. That
So,
would be good.
So
All
are
right.
you going to go against their recommendation? Is that what you're saying?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think
I think
we are.
Frank just wants to hear more details than why they base their recommendation on.
Well, are we okay, everybody, with the first recommendation?
Yeah.
2.5 to 2.75. I mean, I'm okay with that.
well,
Yeah, I'm all right with it.
yeah,
I'm
but
okay.
they want you to check off. There's three options on there, change, no change, just the inflation rate, or the inflation rate and smoothing. So they need to know all that at one time,
Okay.
okay, whether you're doing it or not.
I think what they're proposing on the smoothing seems fine to me, but if people want more explanation, we can have them come in and explain the details. I think this is a fairly conservative approach to the 5-year averaging. And it does have, I think, a risk reduction effect on our municipal obligation rather than a risk increase. But if you'd like to have them come in and hear about it more, I certainly can have them come in June. Okay, anybody object to that?
So I'll have them come in,
Have them come in June and we'll plan to put this
or
on.
I'll
the
have them
agenda.
attend rather.
Yeah, and we'll have them come, we'll have this on the agenda in June to vote. So
Right.
we'll have plenty of time for them to prepare
Yeah,
our pension documents for September.
Just-
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm not sure if it helps, but we have the smoothing from 90 to 110, and they
Right.
want to we have 80 to 120, and they want to change it lower, like more
Right.
narrow from 90 to 110. So
Right.
I actually think it's less aggressive than what it is,
It's-
but it's good if they can explain it to us.
Yeah, Sue Trout did tell me that you could even approve it in July if you want. It's just again, the earlier they know, the earlier they can get ready, but that's not a problem. Okay, so I'll have her 10. Item D. Sorry. Should have muted myself there. Again, this is another thing that is intended for you to review and discuss at the June meeting, and not necessarily for action tonight, unless for some reason everyone is totally aware of everything going on here and you want to go ahead with it. Back in September of 2020, council approved a motion to renew the contract governing electrical supply procurement program. I believe this was through Connect, if I'm not mistaken, that covered 26 area governments. And that agreement is up for renewal at the end of October, if you'd like to. And NLX is the one that is the company that coordinated this, and they sent me a letter. I gave you 2-paragraph excerpts on here as to what they're saying about it. And they, it would be a 2-year agreement again, if you're interested. The Word
want
document
your-
they refer to is attached to your agenda. And if you would like, I will send everybody a copy of the 2020 agreement. It's a PDF version. I can email it to you tomorrow.
I would
So,
like to see that, and I also would like to have Siemens look at this, because
well, that's what I thought.
we are talking about consolidating all of our accounts under one billing address. And if that lowers our rate, it may exclude our ability to be in this consortium. So I do want to look at that first.
right.
And we don't have to decide this tonight or this month, but I do want to look at it in June.
Anybody else? Okay,
They're
what
also
I,
asking for
go-
they're asking really for a 4-year. They want us to take both 2-year renewals at the same time.
oh, yeah,
And
I'm
I
sorry.
think I definitely want to look at it carefully before we agree to that. And I also want to talk to our partners in Pittsburgh, certainly, about, how they're planning to proceed. Are they all staying in, or is this coming to pieces? So I want to review that if you don't mind.
What I'll do is send you 3 documents. I'll repeat
Thank you.
the 2 documents that came from an Al that I just summarized here and attached one of them to this agenda. And I'll also send you the PDF version of the 2020 agreement. I'll send it to everybody, and I'll copy John Zeller on it.
Yeah.
And if he wants me to send it to somebody else, I'll do that too.
Okay, thank
Anybody
you.
else have any questions about that? Okay, my last item was you had asked about the street sweeper purchase. So I wanted to show you what we've come up with just to give you an idea of what's going on. And I want to explain to you where some of the money can come from should you want to do this. Jim got a couple of examples from A&H Equipment of 2 different kinds of trucks. I attached their pictures to the agenda. I'm assuming you could just look at them. I'm not going to share the screen with that tonight. The mechanical version is one that has a conveyor belt behind it, and the air type is like a vacuum type version. And if you look at my notes, we did budget in the capital budget for a lease purchase over 6 years, 27,000 plus, but obviously these 2 would both cost more. Now, I don't know if A&H is on the state contract or not, and so I don't want to necessarily say that these prices are fixed, but that just gives you an idea. Now, a couple of things you should know. First, because this would involve the MS4 stormwater thing, at least in part, plus you also want to have clean streets, you probably can use money from the corrective action budget. I don't know that you could use 100% of that from the correction action budget, but then again, that's always up to you. If you think it's purely a stormwater thing, yeah, then you could go ahead and do that. Just realize that we only have the one fee that covers both sewers. A lot of communities have already started a separate stormwater fee as well. I'm not advocating that. And I think what you should really do before you make any decisions here, bring LSSE into this. Jimmy and I did talk with them briefly about a number of different issues. I think they should be the ones to make any kind of recommendation you might have as to how much you need to do this for MS4 and how much you might want to take from corrective action. Just realize too that a street sweeping program involves also signage, which we did budget in the corrective action budget for 2025, and a regular schedule during certain times of the year, usually spring through fall. So that means you would then be dedicating some man hours to that, depending on how thorough you wanted the street sweeping to be, whether it be every week, every street, every other week, every street, there's different ways of doing it and things like that. Again, I would ask LSSE for their recommendation. And they are going to be starting to attend committee meetings, by the way, in June. I've already sent them the agendas, at least Kevin Brett, the guy who's the lead. I've sent him the agendas from last week's meetings and tonight's meetings. So he is aware of what we're talking about. So unless you feel that there's a need to do something quickly tonight, which I don't think you do, I would make sure you bring LSSE into the discussion here. And I'll let you discuss now from now on. That's all I wanted to bring up about
Well,
that.
Barb,
Go
you
ahead.
were requesting this be on the agenda. Do you want to speak to this issue first?
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
I would like to hear more about our street sweeping program. It's hard to say real fast. And I'm glad that we're pursuing this, but I would like LSSE's input on this. And especially, we only have two different types of vehicles here. And as Mr. Morris noted, we're not sure if these are CoStar equipment or not. So we would have to get other input if it isn't. I did look through some of the capital budget items we had, and I do think we would be able to fund even the higher, the $55,000 lease. But you know that better than me.
Well,
Yeah.
as far as finance is concerned, just so you know, corrective action budget as of the April numbers that Allison gave you shows a total of 1.5 million available in both the regular corrective action funds and the reserve. Now, the reserve originally was set up for the drop dead date of 2026 when we thought we were going to have to do something with Alcosan. And then some people kind of hemmed and hawed around and backed off of that. So I'm not sure if it's needed. We never really grew the reserve up to where we thought it should be eventually. Anyway, we were trying to get up to a 1 million. It's about 300 some thousand. So I just want to mention that to you. That's how much money you have. You just need, again, I would not do something without having SSE look at where we stand on sewer projects and what needs to be done yet. So you're not spending money that really needs to be dedicated to something else.
I definitely want to have an estimate from LSSE about where we stand on the Alcosan trunk turnover. Because I thought we were close to finished. And if that isn't the case, we need to revisit the monies that we have set aside. Definitely having the streets swept of debris that will clog up the sewer lines is definitely an important part of this whole operation. And we definitely have to take that into consideration. But I think we should do it in the context of the whole project and do it in the sequence appropriate to the need. So if you could have them give us a call, please, about getting this on the agenda for the next meeting. Angelo, you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to just make a comment. In preparation for this, I independently contacted a company, US Municipal, that also deals with street sweepers. And they provided some recommendations as well. Like the street sweeper that also has a catch basin cleaner associated with it. And they highly recommend using a vacuum cleaner, which is referred to as an air cleaner, but that's a misnomer. It's a vacuum that provides better cleaning of the streets because of the different kinds of debris that we would encounter. But I would recommend that when we do finally take a look at this, we involve several different vendors.
Yeah, we'd have to do that.
Recommendation, and they will also provide a demonstration.
I also would wonder which the kinds of vehicles have the least maintenance problems. Because I know the one we have is more out of service than in because of mechanical difficulties, and I'd like to be sure we've investigated that as well. Frank,
Right.
you have your hand up.
I do, just a couple of quick questions. With the, as far as vacuuming out catch basins, I think we could use the Vector truck for that, although we'd have to confirm that with Jim, but I believe that there's attachments on that that would address the cleaning out of the catch basins. And the other question I have is this: and have we looked at just hiring a third party to come in and periodically run a street sweeper on a quarterly basis? So just so we're clear, I'm not opposed to making that kind of a purchase. But then if we're going to make that purchase, we probably should look at just setting a regular street sweeping schedule for the community and be done with it. Something that we've never done, because we've owned our previous machine since I think we took delivery of that back in 98 or 99. Right? And we never ever established a regular schedule, or maybe we did and we abandoned it. I'm not 1,000% sure of the details, but it would be nice to either have that schedule, and if not, maybe we look at hiring somebody on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, can I chime in?
Mr. Mayor,
We didn't really have any kind of regular schedule when I started here in 2000, so I was here just after that purchase. At the time too, we were members of Steel Valley Council of Governments, and they did have a street sweeper. So does a Turtle Creek. Turtle Creek did. I believe that their public works stuff is almost non-existent right now. I could be wrong about that, but I don't know that I would count on them anyway. But regardless, bringing in a contractor for anything makes sense. Including this, the only thing that you need to be concerned about is what input the union would have, because you don't want to have a problem with them where they're accusing you of taking work away from them. And I know that sounds kind of simple, and it's not something that necessarily you can't do, but I just want to mention that that can be an issue that comes up. So you just want to be aware of that.
I would say that the constant feedback I've heard at various public works committee meetings and committees as a whole have been that he can't keep his head above water with the work he has. So I'm not entirely sure that they're going to push back on us for that, because they can barely keep up with what we do now. And again, please understand, in no way am I being critical. I'm just saying that maybe we should just explore that option if we're looking at all these other options in terms of the outlay of capital.
Yeah.
Because if we could repurpose those dollars to something more important or more significant, then maybe we should just look at that as an option. Again, if we're going to get on a regular schedule, let's buy it and be done with it, and I get it. But if not, maybe we should outsource it.
I've seen people push back on things that you didn't think they should push back on. So would it surprise me that they would push
get it.
back on this? No.
No. I totally get where you're coming from, and we obviously we'd have to look at that too. But just again, throwing my 2 cents in there just for what it's worth. Sorry.
Angelo and then Barbara. Angelo?
Yes, thank you. I believe that if we're going to do it, we need to have a regular schedule. Doing it quarterly is not going to help. I think the borough's starting to look a little shabby with the way the streets look. And I think the residents are looking for us to do something about that, clean it up, not to mention the fact that it'll keep the storm sewers cleaner. So, and it may wind up that even if you tried to do it quarterly, it's going to wind up costing you almost as much as if you were buying the equipment on a lease purchase. So
Can I answer that before you go to the other people real quick?
Yeah.
I think that you don't want to, I don't believe with MS4 you would do a quarterly thing. I think you have to do a very detailed, involved program if you're doing meeting the stormwater requirements. And that's something that's, I believe, required. I think it would be much more than quarterly anyway.
Barb and then Cecil.
Thank you. I agree. I would like to explore having someone else come in and do this. First, we could check, of course, with the solicitor to see if there's no trouble with the union. But then I think it would just be easier on Public Works as well for them to try to schedule this in. And who knows, maybe it's cheaper to rent this out or pay on a, pay another company to do it. As long as we're in compliance with our storage, I think it's great. Thank you.
Cecil?
I think that we probably need a lot more information. I don't know if the borough is big enough to justify buying a street sweeper when it's something that could be done in, say, 6-8 hours once. I don't know if that's enough time to clean the whole borough, or if it would justify buying a machine and doing that, or if it would be better off to just subcontract with someone else, or maybe the quarterly program. I don't know if we can get those questions answered from current Public Works, or if we need more details from them.
Yeah. What I'm hearing is that we need more information, and I'd like to get some of that from our engineering firm as soon as possible, and have them confer with the Public Works foreman about the possibility of scheduling and what the workload would be to do this properly. And I think we should look at it in the context of abating our MS4 burden as much as possible. Marcus, you have a comment as well.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with everyone, but I think we should take it into executive session. We're kind of getting into that territory where we should stop talking about it.
Yeah, I agree that, it's a very sensitive issue, and some financial commitments need to be made. So I think we should do it in executive session.
Okay.
But we should still do the research where we have the numbers.
Yeah.
Research beforehand.
Right.
Steve, would you please ask LSSE to give us some information about this when they come to the next meeting, and probably take it under Public Works?
Yeah, I will. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be at the May 17th meeting yet or not. I know they're going to start coming in June, but
No, but probably
I'll
the
check.
the June committee meeting would be enough time,
Yeah.
I think, because this isn't a time sensitive pressure right now. But I think before we make a decision about a capital outlay, we need to have a little more information, and I think they need to confer with Jimmy and give us a good estimate of what is, first of all, possible, what the range of people from CoStar might be, and what the cost of a service provision for weekly or bi-weekly or whatever they would recommend. I also think looking at what proportion of this need would be directly related to our MS4 obligations. Certainly cleaning debris out of the streets would reduce our burden on the sewer system for particulate matter and heavy matter. So that would be an important addition to our plan. So if you could ask them to please address that, that would be helpful.
Yes,
Thank
I
you.
will. I'm done. Other than that, I don't have anything else to report.
Okay, is there anything else under this committee? Would like to report to you that I looked at the requirements for the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, which is due for a letter of interest of 10 pages on June 5th. I looked at the screening criteria that are used for this grant, and our community is not a qualified either distressed community or an energy community, as far as I can tell from the 2 screening tools that I was able to access. I am continuing conversation with the Department of Energy. I'm planning to talk to a person down here in Washington while I'm here tomorrow. But I don't think it would be likely that we would succeed in this grant on a standalone basis. So I am recommending that we join forces with the Mon Metro Chamber and go in with their larger grant with 5 other communities that are absolutely qualified, and join forces with them on this aspect of that proposal. They are planning to come to talk to us on Wednesday, and I'll bring that up under Cal. So I will not be doing a financial grant under the EE Conservation Rock Grant for just Forest Hills. I have nothing else under this committee unless someone else has something they wish to raise. Okay, then we're adjourned for this committee, and I yield the floor to Mr. Erbaldinger.
Mr. Erbaldinger, I'm ready to go with committee of the whole, and I have no report for managers update.
I'm ready.
Yeah,
Um,
I have no report.
So Steve Corbel is not here. We had him last week, so that's done. Point A, like 1 and 2, I actually wanted to put in my president's report for next week, just to mention in public to say thank you. So we don't have to talk about that. Siemens update, and we have a kickoff meeting scheduled in 2 weeks with all the stakeholders involved, like Jimmy, new engineers, Steve Morse, architects. We need to involve fire department to some degree as well, Steve, and just to have a kickoff meeting. So that's coming up.
And Rick Colello was on this, but I think he's off of it now. I think
Yeah.
he was going to listen to what you had to say.
So we need to have him be invited too, because fire department building is a big part of that Siemens thing, solar panels and all that good stuff. So we should have him as well.
Okay.
B, and then I wanted to do kind of steal my thunder. I wanted to say the same thing. You and I, we signed the contract for that $700,000. So thank you, Patty. I think you did a lot of work for that. So we got that. And as far as I read it, I think we are ready to go. They just gave us money, but it's good for Steve to double check. But in my mind, once we signed it, they will send us an executed copy. We are done with that. But
Yeah, as long as the date of the signature, I think, is the date at which we can start. So we should get McMahon involved in designing.
the date was literally today. We
Yeah.
both signed electronically, and they will send it back to us.
Good.
I see how he did. So we're good with that. All right.
Good.
Item B, Bob, you want to talk about that?
Thank you, Mr. President. We're starting up our second year of the Japanese knotweed eradication Save Our Parks program in the main park. We will start that on June 3rd, Saturday at 9 a.m. I'll be calling all council members and inviting you to come and help out like last year. We've made significant progress. I just walked by recently, and I'm happy to report that there's a lot of new growth from some native plants that we couldn't even see the ground last year. So thank you very much, and hope you'll participate again this year.
Thank you for that effort, Barb. You really organized a lot of people to come out and work on that. It's really showing the effort.
And you should always talk to the Boy Scouts again. I think they were very helpful with that.
I already have.
Yeah, I know you would. I think you would do that. All right. Next, Patty, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, this is Tina Duche is the president of the Mon Metro Chamber of Commerce, and Chad Fitzgerald is the vice president of EOS Energy. They're planning to come to our borough council meeting on the 17th to talk about the EOS project and invite Forest Hills in as a demonstration site for the battery. I am working with them on writing the community benefits agreement, even though I'm not sure we will be qualified to be part of the benefits agreement part. We will be an indirect beneficiary because of the increased business activity that will come around this plant. They're planning to co-locate not only their own manufacturing, but their entire supply chain into the Mon Valley, and using this as a template for co-locating all of the suppliers, all American-made suppliers now, for all of the elements of their battery production, which is a non-lithium based battery. It uses an aqueous electrolyte, so it's not explosive. They don't need a clean room. They don't need a fire suppression factory. The workers are not clad in hazmat suits. And when they're installed, you don't have a fire hazard for the installation. So for us, it will give us a battery that we can put in our microgrid down in our business district. and it will give us backup to our solar systems that will give an increased resilience, and we'll be part of the demonstration grant to do that. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that they will be asking for time to speak on Wednesday next week. And I would like to recommend that Forest Hills join the Mon Metro Chamber of Commerce. It costs $250 just as a token of solidarity with this effort. I think we can afford $250, yes?
I'm fine with it. I was waiting for everyone else to say.
Oh, I agree.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, fine. So they'll come on Wednesday. And I think this is one of the most exciting projects I've ever encountered in the last 10 years. They were also a recipient of a Lodestar Award, as we were last Thursday at the Pennsylvania Solar Center. I have a certificate to present to the council. I attended the ceremony last Thursday, and we can put it in our growing list of awards received for the borough efforts on advancing renewable energy in our town. So that's all I have to report.
Do we have anything to report of the Environmental Advisory Council, Tree and Shrub? And I think Borough Property should be part of that list too.
I had nothing. They had no meeting.
And Bob, did you go to Borough Property, I think?
The Tree and Shrub Committee, yes.
Ah.
I just wanted to say thank you to the Tree and Shrub Committee and also the Late Bloomers Garden Club. They recently purchased a native tree. You'll see it over in the area catty corner to the library where the one tree was taken down. But it's a fringe tree, and it's very, very lovely when it gets bigger. Unfortunately, they're kind of small now, every one that you get, but thanks to the Late Bloomers Garden Club for that and the Tree and Shrub Committee. Thank you.
And the Garden Club Farmers Market is starting what, in the 20th, right? The 19th or 20th of May?
The 19th.
19th, Friday.
I actually have a question. Did we do everything what we needed, what they needed, like signs and stuff? Like that yellow line, that no parking after Fridays and
Signs are coming soon. The crew is going to be painting lines. I think, I believe Jim wanted to speak with Miss Martin ahead of time. Maybe he already has, I don't know. I think he wanted to talk to you a little bit before he did anything with that, but I believe either the sign's coming or it may have just arrived. I don't know for sure of that, but
I'm just
The two signs are there already indicating no parking, but the bigger sign for the farmer's market itself just came. But
I
yeah,
see.
and I talked with Jimmy about that line that's going to be painted.
Okay, just for everyone else's sake, I think, last year they put those horseshoe saddles up at somewhere in the afternoon on Thursday, and now we have those lines and signs: do not park beyond that line Friday after whatever 4 a.m. or whatever 4 p.m. something like that, just to make it easier for them and make it more permanent. Anything else?
I should just mention, Hollywood has provided us with some upgrades in the council room, including new microphones, which should be better. You still need to make sure you speak into them to be recorded and live streamed, but they haven't trained us on it yet, but that should be something that you'll see when you come in next Wednesday.
Cool. Anything else? I think we have today is record time. Pretty productive.
I do have,
Angelo, sorry.
yeah, real two quick things. We still have some outstanding issues. I don't know where they should be brought up, but we started to look at pest control and whether or not we were going to begin the program again. Haven't had heard anything back from that. I think it would be nice for us to get an update on that. And the second item is we have a number of ordinances that were passed, including noxious weeds and that sort of thing. And it would be nice for us to advertise to the public of what those ordinances are, so that if they are cited, they understand why they were cited.
How do you propose we advertise to the public?
Savvy Citizen, the website.
All right. Anything else? Okay, I will see you next week, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everybody.